Way over! Back of the stand job almost! And it's back to Paraguay to clinch a place.
Germany was a minus 700 favorite. The comeback on that was plus 520. If you bet $100 on Paraguay, you won $520. I don't get how they can miss those penalty kicks that badly when they're the best players in the world. That guy skied that thing into the upper deck almost, the German guy. I can't imagine he's going to be very popular when he gets back to Stuttgart, or Frankfurt, or Berlin.
He also had that goal in extra time, or the goal that was disallowed in extra time.
That was the right call, right?
Yeah,
I watched a lot of this yesterday, not start to finish each game, but I watched a lot of the dramatic moments. Now, I have to tell you that the game between the Dutch and Morocco, man, the Dutch played it safe.
Yeah,
it was really kind of boring the way they tried to just essentially get themselves to penalty kicks. They were the favorite too, but it was obvious. This is one of those things, I'll be honest with you. I don't know what's going on a lot of the time in these soccer games, but did you watch this, Max? Because you understand this more than I do.
Well, I wouldn't say more. It's just like watching hockey. Kind of
were the experts saying that the Netherlands were basically playing very conservatively?
Yes, that was the large takeaway I saw on social media last night. Morocco was running circles around those tall
Morocco
boys.
Looked so much better, but I thought the Dutch are like one of these powerhouses, and they were favored, and they looked like the scared team. They looked like the team that just wanted it to get to penalty kicks. I haven't looked this up. But, you can bet draws even in the knockout round, because if the game ends after 90 minutes in a tie and you bet on a draw, you win the bet no matter what happens after that. I would have to think that if you bet draw on every single World Cup game since this World Cup started, you got to be way ahead, because you're getting back plus 200, plus 300 sometimes on draw odds. I mean, we saw so many draws in the preliminary stage games, and now in 2 days of knockout games, 2 of the 4 games have ended in a tie, headed to extra time, and then eventually penalty kicks. Has to be way ahead if you just decided blanket coverage on draw in every single game. Has to be way ahead. I mean, can't imagine that the books haven't taken a pounding on draw bets. Now, with that said, they can lower the odds, and I haven't followed the odds. I just occasionally look at them, Max, and I see that sometimes, you're getting plus 200 or more on a draw, right?
Yeah, it's funny. This thing it's kind of been a thing the past couple World Cups that sports gambling has become more and more of a thing. One of my brother's coworkers, and we've played it on the show, PFT commenter, he has employed this betting strategy. I believe, so this is 15 days ago that we would only bet draws after the Saudi Arabia-Uruguay game, 3 for 3 on draws that day with an ROI of 178.57%.
Yes. I mean, I'm looking at right now the odds for today's game. Norway, Ivory Coast, draw odds plus 250. Now, France is a massive favorite, against Sweden, or a big favorite against Sweden. So the draw odds are plus 460. What were the draw odds for Germany and Paraguay yesterday? Germany was minus 700. I'm assuming the draw odds were like plus 600. See if you can find that.
Draw
because that's
plus 400 to plus 450.
Wow. Now, Mexico, Ecuador today, plus 188 on a draw. So you're saying that somebody that has bet draw throughout the tournament and is way ahead?
Yeah, one of my brother's coworkers, he has been employing this strategy since he did this in 2022, and he was way ahead. So, yeah, now he's doing it in 2026. And
it occurred to me, and I did text somebody that I know very well offshore, and I just said, just betting a draw in every one of these games, I got to be way ahead. And he just sent me back a thumbs up emoji.
There.
Now, of course, now that dummies like me are
Catching
figuring it
on.
out, every single game's going to be settled in regulation the rest of the way. So, I've said this many times for those of you that haven't heard it. I don't like soccer. I like the World Cup. I think that is the general feeling of a lot of, hardcore American sports fans, which I certainly am. And while I didn't watch any of these games start to finish, I did watch the very important parts. First of all, Brazil was down 1-0 at the half. They got the go-ahead in extra time to win the game over Japan 2-1. They were a heavy favorite. Then came Germany and Paraguay. We've already told you, Germany was a massive minus 700 favorite. Paraguay was the team that the U.S. in their very, very first game blew out like 4-1, I think it was. And this game had some controversy. The Germans had a goal that was overturned by replay. It went to extra time. And the extra time in that game was much more exciting than the extra time in the Netherlands-Morocco game. Although Morocco got robbed on a great stop by the Netherlands goalie. But that shootout, I just can't believe how many times the shootout guys miss so badly. Like they missed the goal entirely. Far left, far right, way over. Look, the nerves watching it, you can tell this is nerve-wracking. I hate, when games get decided in gimmicky ways. But I think in soccer, you can't have them continue to play for hours upon hours. I mean, the game would slow down and the opportunity to score would probably even lessen as it went on. I mean, you'd have people keeling over in some of these games. I mean, I do love hockey when they don't have, penalty shots in the postseason, but I get why they have to do this. I'm wondering, by the way, has this always been the way World Cup games were decided? You have 30 minutes of extra time, overtime, as we like to call it, and then they go to penalty kicks. Has it always been that, or was there a time in which you just played when you got to sudden death? It seems like penalty kicks and penalty shots are more of a, not a 21st century thing, but a late 20th century thing. And I'm wondering if, like in the 1960s or 70s in World Cup play, if they had penalty kicks or if they just kept going on and on and on. And eventually it became sudden death, maybe after after overtime. See if you can look that up. See when penalty kicks started in the World Cup, Max. But lots of missed penalty kicks in the Germany-Paraguay game and also in the Netherlands-Morocco game. And the two underdogs won both games. Paraguay, that's a massive, massive upset. The shots of their fans in the crowd, and same with the Moroccans, it's just, we cannot relate, man. We cannot relate to the importance, the crying, the wailing.
Did you see
of some of these fans?
Did you see after Brazil's second goal, like late in the game, they cut to a Japanese fan in a sea of Brazilians, and he was just losing his mind with just the devastation. It really means more everywhere else.
Well, especially like if you're, a South American country like Paraguay, I don't know. Have they had it doesn't seem to me like they've had a lot of success in the World Cup. I could be wrong. I'm not a historical, World Cup guy by a long shot, but they were such an underdog. I think they were an underdog to even make the knockout round, especially after they got absolutely walloped by the U.S. They make the knockout round and they get Germany, and they're, Germany's a minus 700 favorite, and Paraguay pulls it off, and the shots of the fans are, it's tremendous. It's tremendous. It's the best part of it. I'm telling you, the pregame, the national anthems, and then at the end of the games, the shots of the fans and the players, it is the best part of this. Because the game itself, all due respect, whenever you say all due respect, you're about to insult somebody or a sport. It's just not tremendously exciting. And that Netherlands-Morocco game, my God, there was literally, when the Moroccans had the ball, there was action. When the Dutch had the ball, there was no action. But yeah, pretty wild. I mean, the Dutch were down to, they had those two stops or the Germans had the two stops in a row to get themselves back on track in the shootout, and it went to an extra one in Paraguay, or was that Paraguay won 4-3 on penalties because you're taking 5 each, right? And so you've got so they ended up winning with 4 made kicks to 3 for the Germans. Pretty wild. It's exciting, I have to say, the penalty kicks. The drama attached to it is, I mean, I can only imagine the nerves. And look, in some of these countries, this is your current and your future as a human being in those countries. If you miss one and your team loses and it's a bad miss, in some of these places, you may not be allowed back. It's that important to these places. So, 4 Sweet 16. They don't call it the Sweet 16. I call it the Sweet 16. 4 round of 16 Sweet 16 games in the books, another 12 to go. We get the favorite in the entire tournament, France, playing today against Sweden. The Mexicans are going to be in it. This is going to be insanity tonight in Mexico City. Did
you see what they're doing outside the Ecuadorian hotel?
I did not see what they're doing.
Crowds of people, just every noisemaker you can possibly think of to keep them awake all night. Mexicans are really, really pulling out all the stops for this one.
Well, yeah, I mean, that country's insane for this. I've seen that stadium before. I've been in Mexico City. It's a phenomenal city. And that is going to be quite the scene. They better not lose at home. They
get real bad.
The pressure on Mexico tonight, and I did notice Mexico is a slight dog. Did you see that? They are a slight underdog tonight. It looks like it actually. Here's the crazy thing about soccer. They're not a slight dog. They're actually a slight favorite. They're at plus 124. Ecuador's at plus 244, and the draw's at plus 188.
Looking at extra time.
Don't think that there's actually a way to play all 3 and to win. That's not the way it would work. But the draw is actually the second favorite in this particular game tonight for this thing to go to extra time. And then, and by the way, the over-under appears to be the lowest in the entire, there are a couple of other games. But it's the over-under is 2. Most soccer games you can count on pretty much an over-under of 2.5, meaning total goals scored. So you're betting over 2.5 or under 2.5. A 2-1 game, you win. A 1-0 game or a 1-1 game, well, actually 1-1, you're going to eventually get to a 2-1 winner because, well, I don't know. How does that get? How do totals get judged in extra time and on penalty kicks?
So I believe that it would just finish at 1-1 because I'm looking at the box. I'm looking at the box score of all of the draws from yesterday, and it just says Paraguay, Germany 1-1, Morocco, Netherlands 1-1.
Right.
I think it would just get scored.
What if one of those 2 teams, what if one of those 4 teams had scored in extra time? Then it would have been a 2-1 final, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So you had a chance to go over the total, but once it got to penalty kicks, that was it. Because the game's going to end 1-1.
Pretty much.
Right. I still think the flopping's in absolutely insufferable. It's just so bad. I know that in many cases there's a strategy to it, to stop the game, to let everybody get a break, to whatever it is. It just the theatrics around the flopping are just. I mean, I guess you could find somebody that would say they're tremendous the way they're acted out. I just think it's really painful to watch. And then the other part of it, I just can't stand the timing of these games. How the hell can you play in the highest level of competitions and not know how much time's left in a game? I mean, at least down. How about just narrow it down to a 30-second window for me, at least. But no, you have no clue. It is kept by the referee on the field. He adds the stoppage time, but then the stoppage time isn't, it's going to be plus a number, but you don't know if that's plus, if it's plus 6, is that plus 6 minutes and 10 seconds, or is that plus 6 minutes and 28 seconds? Maybe if it's plus 6 minutes and 32 seconds, it's actually a plus 7. But then in that stoppage time, once people start rolling around on the ground and you get the delays, then you get more stoppage time added to it, but you don't really know how much is added to that. That is, to me, the most curious thing. And soccer fans around the world do not care. They love that part of it. They love to be surprised by the ending. You can see when these games are well past, the +4, +5, +6, and you've gone well past that. And they're hanging on their seats if they've got if they're rooting for the team that's in front. Like, when's he going to blow the whistle? How much time's left? And sometimes they're so way off on it, because, a ball will get kicked out of bounds and the fans will start cheering, expecting the referee to blow the whistle to end the game. And then it goes on for another 2 minutes.
Brazil's bench, like they were about to run on the field with how much time.
Game wasn't over. No. And then if the game actually, with the referee, were to end based on whatever time he has randomly selected, but the team that's losing is moving towards the goal, the referee lets them finish that.
Got to give them a shot.
I mean, the equivalent to that would be you're down 2 in a basketball game, and the buzzer goes off at 0-0-0, but you pass it around a couple of times, and then you get a shot that goes, and it counts. I don't get that. I'm sure, look, the fact that people love something that doesn't make sense to me doesn't bother me. I'm not bothered by it. I'm curious as to why, as a sports fan that loves competition, wouldn't want to know exactly how much time your team has, if they've got the lead, to run out to win the game, or how much time your team that is behind has to come back and win the game. Well, whatever. Some of these things will never be figured out, and there'll always be curiosities. I've talked to people about this, and they've said they love the fact that it's a surprise. They like to be surprised by when the clock, ends. It becomes very dramatic with the referee. Is there a minute left in this, or are there 5 seconds? Is there 25 seconds left, or are there 4 minutes left? It's crazy for us. I mean, we time things in tenths of seconds. When we get below a minute, it goes to tenths of seconds. And in this particular sport, worldwide, every country in the world has no issue with having no clue as to when the game will actually end. Now, when a team's up by 2 goals, look, when a team's up by 2 goals, a game is essentially over anyway in that sport. There aren't regular big comebacks. You don't come back from 2-0 down or 3-1 down. I know it happens occasionally, but like the win probability is at like 99% when you're up 2 goals at any point in the game. It could be, after 10 minutes in the game. I mean, that's part of the issue. They love it. We like comebacks. We like to think a team's never out of it when they're down by 15 in the first half of, an NBA Finals game, or, down 2 touchdowns in the first half of a football game. But in that sport, that first goal is so critical. I mean, your odds of scoring the first goal, I think, go to like 90%, 85 to 90%, something like that. And then if you get up 2 goals, it's at 99 plus. I mean, you pretty much are settled in to watch meaningless soccer the rest of the way. We've had some high scoring games in this World Cup. We have. Let me see what the highest total is. What games are they expecting to be offensive? Well, today's France-Sweden game, and that's because of France, right? They score a lot. The total's at 3.5.
Yeah.
That's the highest total of the remaining Sweet 16 games. There you go. The U.S., if you're wondering, is favored tomorrow night against Bosnia and Herzegovina. A minus 255 favorite with a total of 2.5, Max. The draw odds are plus 360. You concerned about the U.S. tomorrow night?
With how Paraguay played against Germany yesterday and the fact that we handled them pretty well.
Right.
I have a feeling that the Team USA run might be a little bit longer than some folks might be projecting.
Right.
But they might see Spain in the quarters of the semis, and that's going to be rough.
I may be an easy mark on this. I think Fox is doing a great job of covering this event. The one thing I cannot stand, I can't stand that Alexi Lawless. Is that his name? Alexi?
Yeah, you and everyone else though. That's not just a you thing.
But I like the French guy,
Thierry
Henry. I like the Eastern European Bosnian guy. What's his name?
Love me some Zlatan Ibrahimovic.
Like him. I love her. She's great. Rebecca Rowe, I think, or Rebecca Lowe is her name.
Yeah.
She's outstanding as a host.
Quick Zlatan story. Do you remember when he played for the LA Galaxy and he just put out a full page ad in the LA Times that just said, "You're welcome"?
No.
When he retired.
What did he do? He just said, "You're welcome"?
Yeah, he was retiring from MLS because he'd bounced around the European
I didn't know where he played. What country is he from, actually?
He plays for the Swedish national team, or played for the Swedish national team.
Oh, he's Swedish?
Yes.
Well, he's got an Eastern European last name.
His father is Bosnian, I believe.
Okay.
But yeah, so he bounced around Europe for a long time and then came over, did the Messi, and played in MLS with LA Galaxy and David Beckham and all that. And once he was done, he took out a full page ad in the LA Times that just said, "You're welcome."
Beckham obviously is too old for this. What about the English guy, Rooney? Is he too old for this, or does he play for England?
No, Wayne Rooney's he's
Harry Kane's the guy for England that's good, right?
Yeah, he's their 1A. And then there are a bunch of guys like Jude Bellingham who are just astounding.
So England plays in Atlanta tomorrow at 12 against the Congo. I like it. I mean, I think it's really dramatic and entertaining. I'm looking at the updated odds to win this thing. Yeah, France is plus 250, Argentina's plus 400. Then it's England and Spain both at plus 700, Brazil at plus 1,000, Portugal at plus 1,200, Morocco's 20. Wow, the U.S. has slipped in terms of odds. So there are 8. There are 8 teams that have better odds to win it. The U.S. is 33-1 to win the World Cup. 33-1. France is a 3-2 favorite. So there you go. I need to look at the bracket. I'm actually interested. We've talked about this perhaps. If the U.S. wins, they play Belgium, Senegal in the second round, and then would probably get Spain or Portugal. But it seems like upsets happen in this thing because, anytime scoring is so low, it's more ripe for upsets like we saw yesterday. But it does, correct me if I'm wrong, the real premier teams, the real elite teams usually win this World Cup, right?
I mean, the best of the best, yeah.
I mean, it's not like hockey where 8 seeds win the Stanley Cup every once in a while.
There are enough rounds that a good team usually is the one that ends up the victor.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the last. So 2022 Argentina, France, like the last. Yeah, I mean, going back to. I mean, there's no randoms here. So the
Croatia made a nice run back in 2018, but they
but in
had
terms
Luka
of
Modric at the time.
Like Argentina, France in 2022, Argentina over France, France over Croatia, you're right. Then Germany over Argentina in 2014. 2010 was Spain over the Netherlands, Italy over France before that, Brazil over Germany, France over Brazil, Brazil over Italy, West Germany. This is 1990. It would soon become Germany right after that. West Germany over Argentina. Argentina over West Germany in the 86. Italy with Like only the powerhouses get to the finals. Was Croatia a long shot to get to the finals?
That one year that Luka Modric was their
Ooh, look at you.
I remember this because I watched it a ton in school, but Luka Modric was like at the time the top of his game playing for Croatia. He was like in conversations for the Ballon d'Or, which is the basically the MVP of soccer. So yeah, he led them on a huge run, and then they played France, and France is France, so they decided to just score 4 goals at will.
So this thing I'm looking at, it started in 1930. They took off during the war in 42 and 46. The war was over, but they didn't play one in 46. And then what did we do during COVID? 14, 18, and then they went to 22. So it was not a World Cup year in 2020. So they've only missed since 1930 2 World Cups, and that was during World War II.
I will throw in the caveat that 2022, they had to move it from July to like October because they were playing in Qatar.
Oh, right. Okay. Oh, because of the heat.
Yeah,
not
because of the heat, not because of COVID.
Got it. Where is the World Cup in 2030?
That's a great question.
I'm sure there's a list of future World Cup sites somewhere. Anyway, that exercise that I just went through was very instructive. It's not a sport like hockey, ultimately. Hockey, we see all the time. Randoms show up. When I say randoms, long shots show up in the Stanley Cup Finals. We've had 8 seeds galore over the last 20-something years. And when I say galore, 3-4 times at least, right? That they've either been in the finals or they actually won it.
Right.
I think they've won it twice. I think I looked this up a few years ago. Soccer, it just appears that the favorites eventually get through and they are in the finals against each other. I think, what you'd think one of these years it would be like, the upset tournament, the tournament marked by upsets, and you end up with some random UConn Butler final when UConn went in after winning 5 in a row at the Big East tournament. But apparently not. Apparently the best teams do advance. So we'll see. The U.S. is playing in Santa Clara tomorrow night. Looking forward to watching that. I don't know anything about Bosnia, Herzegovina. I have no idea if they're good or not, but the U.S. is favored. So let's see it. That's a lot of World Cup that we just did. Doug Kammerer from Channel 4 will join me next. This from Neil in D.C. Neil writes me, Kevin, are you getting geeked up for the heat wave this week? This is a weather junkie's dream. I'm not, Neil. The heat wave stuff doesn't do it for me like the winter storm stuff does. Let's ask our next guest what he thinks and how he reacts to, these kinds of events. We are having a major heat wave, which will begin tomorrow and last through July 4th weekend. But are you with me that tracking winter storm events, Doug Kammer is with us from Channel 4, is much more exciting than this? By the way, I like the outcomes in winter storm events much more than living with what we're going to have later this week.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I would much rather go out to a nice little 1 to 2 inches of snow falling per hour, walking around in that, than walking around in 110 degree heat index.
Yeah, this isn't going to be fun. So, all right. So let's talk about
somebody
it.
Somebody asked me that same question. I mean, I love, you and I, we love extreme weather. This is something that we look forward to. Whether it be hurricanes, severe thunderstorms, things like that. But this is something different. This is heat. I'm like you. I am not excited about extreme heat. That's not something that floats my boat, so to speak.
All right, so let's get to it. I mean, the alarm bell has been sounded by everybody in town, you included. What this looks to be potentially historic. So tell everybody what they're in store for beginning tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, we've got this area of high heat that's making its way in, and as it does so, we'll have temperatures tomorrow that'll get into the upper 90s to around 100, and then we're going to sit around 100 degrees, if not low 100s, right on through Thursday, Friday, and probably Saturday, which would be 4th of July, and we're going to set some records, I think, and the records are actually fairly low, and what I mean by that is the record on Friday is actually 101. The record for July 4th is actually only 100 degrees. So that's only 10 degrees above average for this time of year. So I fully expect that we could break some records here as we make our way through the next couple of days. And then you look at our heat waves of the past, and how often are we at 100 degrees 3 to 4 days in a row? Not very often. We saw a couple of 100-degree days last year. 2024, we did have 4 days in a row over 100 degrees. But before that, it was all the way back in 2016. And before that, it was 2012. So we don't get this a lot in our area, but we do get this every few years.
What's the cause of it?
Well, we got this. You mentioned everybody's talking about the heat dome. What is a heat dome? Well, that is simply an area. And if you were to look at it 3D and be able to turn the earth and things like that, you would actually see a little bit of a doming. And what that means is air rising in the middle of that dome. It's an area of high pressure. And that allows that air aloft to rise because of the fact you've got so much heat in the middle levels and lower levels of the atmosphere. So that's going to allow that dome to happen. It's also called an upper level ridge of high pressure. What is that? That means the jet stream is literally going from west of Texas all the way up into Canada and just driving this heat our way. And it's also going to drive dew points way up too. And with that, high pressure is going to be right around our area and then slide a little bit off to the south and east. And that just brings up a lot of moisture. So if dew points are above, say, 65 or 70, that's going to push our heat indices, our heat index, or the way it feels out there, upwards of 105 to 110. So that's what we're looking at. And we have a heat advisory that's in effect for everybody during the day tomorrow. Heat advisory is issued for the D.C. area and for most of us when the heat index gets above 105. So that's expected to start tomorrow. And then we've got an extreme heat watch for Thursday and Friday. And that means we could see a heat index above 110. And we don't get those very often. We did get it twice last year, but I remember we did not hit that 110 level. But again, this is something that we don't see very often. So this is some dangerous heat we've got coming our way.
I'm sure we have, but I mean, I know sort of the progression, winter weather advisory, winter storm watch, winter storm warning. We also have the heavy snow warning that occasionally comes in, the blizzard warning, etc. Is extreme heat warning the top level? It can't go any higher than that, correct?
No, you can't. And we don't get, this is as extreme as we get. You have to remember our highest recorded temperature ever in Washington, D.C. was back in 1930 at 106 degrees in the month of July. So, we're going to go, right now I'm going for 102 on Thursday, 103 on Friday, but we've got some of the computer models that are going a little bit warmer than that. The European, which you and I both love, we talk about the European model all the time, has a heat bias, meaning it's going to come in a little bit warmer, and it's taken us to 107, which would be an all-time high temperature, but it's done this so many times before. So I don't buy the European. There's times where I throw the European out, and this is definitely one of those times. Just bring those numbers down a little bit. But I think we'll be in the 100 to 103 degree range for much of our area over the next couple of days.
So what do you have for 4th of July? You got 102 on Thursday, 103 Friday. What do you have for Saturday? Yeah,
I had, yes, as of yesterday, my forecast for last night during the 11 o'clock news, I put 101. Saturday's going to be interesting. I haven't said this on the air. We're talking about a chance for, we're talking about a chance for thunderstorms with these. Yes. And I don't want to use that word lightly. As you know, the derecho was one of the worst storms to ever hit the Washington, D.C. area. Of course, we're talking about 2012. It was actually, the anniversary was yesterday, June 29th, when we got to 104 degrees that day. But the pattern for it is fairly similar. You have this heat dome or this big ridge of high pressure just to our west as the storms move through. The storms move up on the upper level of that ridge, and we call that the ring of fire because that's where the storms form. And when they form in that ring, they go up in towards areas around the Great Lakes, and then they come back down towards our area. And that's what happened during the derecho. And that's a possibility that we could see something similar to that on Friday and then again on Saturday. And Saturday could be bad for all the activities going on for the 4th.
All right, I want to come back to that in a moment. We're talking to, of course, Channel 4 chief meteorologist, Doug Kammerer. Watch him the next few nights at 5, 6, and 11. He comes on typically at like 5:18, 5:45, usually in that time frame for his 2 hits. But I'd imagine you're going to be at the top of the newscast for the next few nights. I'm interested in DC's all-time high temperature, which was set in 1918 and also 1930. 106 degrees is the all-time. I think some people would be surprised that you got to go all the way back, over 100 years and nearly 100 years for 106. But do you know anything about where those temperatures were taken, and do you trust the accuracy of it?
Yeah, I mean, they were downtown. That's the interesting part about this. I mean, our measuring has been, our thermometer has been moved a couple of times. It used to be right downtown, I believe, right outside the Smithsonian, down close to the National Mall. And of course, now it's moved out to the airport. I believe in, I had the year for this earlier, but now I forget the year.
50s or 60s?
We moved out to the airport. Yeah, I think it was the 60s, but I'm not exactly sure. So the data itself is not exactly reliable because you don't have, if you're downtown, that's going to give you a different number than the airport. What's interesting is that our heat records are very old, and most of our high temperature records are very old. I mean, you go back to the 20s and the 30s. The 30s was a very hot decade for us, just like it was for the entire nation. I mean, the 30s was the hottest decade in history for the U.S.
Wow.
Yeah. And everybody talk about, climate change and global warming and stuff like that. We're not seeing that on the extreme side as far as the high temperatures go. So if we were to set a record today, I guarantee you're going to have people out there saying, or records, next couple of days, oh, it's climate change and oh my gosh. I mean, no. this is a heat ridge that's building in, and trust me, we are due to break a record. I mean, the fact that we haven't broken the record since 1918 is kind of amazing. So
it says I read that it was set twice, 1918 and 1930.
In 1930, yeah, 1918 it was August. July was 1930. So and again, 1930 that was a heck of a heat wave as well. And then 1926. I mean, you've got records from all of those years. So we've got a lot of records back at that time frame that were allowing us to get there. I mean, even the 1925 was an incredibly hot summer for us as well. So we go way back with those, but we typically do not set a lot of record high temperatures. We haven't, but we do set a lot of record low temperatures. And the reason is because of the fact that we are at the airport now. We are in the city, and the city and the airport hold a lot more heat. So that's where we're getting a lot of records set much more often. We're getting a lot more record lows set than record high temperatures.
Doug, what do you know about 1930, no air conditioning?
Yeah.
Right. People have blocks of ice that they have to buy to keep cool. What was the death count after a heat wave like that? Do you know?
I do not know. But you look at Europe, for example. I mean, Europe, they have interesting. I'm looking at something on TV right now. It says European heat wave. They don't have air conditioning, and it's kind of amazing that they still don't. More and more places are getting it. If you've ever been to Europe, you've probably stayed in a place. I mean, I know I made sure for the most part that I checked every place that I was staying in that had AC. Now, the one place that for some reason, I must not have looked, and next thing you know, we're in a place without air conditioning, and my wife was not having that. So we had to move Airbnbs, and rightfully so. We're in the middle of summer and no air conditioning. So, that's a big thing. So you look at there's thousands and thousands of deaths every single year from extreme heat. We don't have that here in the United States, thank goodness. Now, you look back at 1995 major heat wave up around the Chicago area. That heat wave, that was thousands of people around the Chicago area that died. So, and that's because up in Chicago, there's not nearly as much air conditioning as there is in our area as well. So that's something that we have to work on and we have to fix. And we know for us, we open up the city does a great job opening up cooling centers, allowing people to come in and get cooled off. But that's a huge thing now. The fact that we do have a way to keep us cool and we're not just sitting out there stifling in the heat.
I found this from the Washington Post, 1930. D.C. endured a 10-day stretch of unbearable heat. The highest temperature during that stretch was 106 degrees, and that is their all-time record high. According to the Post, some thermometers, Doug, on that day in various areas of the city recorded temperatures of up to 108 and even 110 degrees. Up to 30 people lost their lives from that heat wave. Crazy.
And you think about that, 30 people, that's not a lot.
No, it doesn't seem like a lot based on, the ability to sort of escape it back then.
Right.
All right. Right. So back to, first of all, what are before we get to Saturday and the derecho suggestion, and I'm not going to hold you to it. And I know you don't want to.
Not a suggestion. Definitely not a suggestion.
I don't want. You're not sounding the alarm bell yet. You're keeping your eye.
No,
on
not
it.
at all. Not at all.
Yeah.
It's something I'm watching. It's something I'm watching because of the fact of the setup that we have here. We've got, when you put heat into the atmosphere, you're creating a ton of energy. The more heat in the atmosphere, the more energy you have. The more humidity you have, the more energy you have. So we're going to have a ton of energy. It's just a matter of, are we going to kick storms off? Now, on Saturday, we know we're going to have a trough of low pressure that's going to come through, and that will help to kick storms off. Is it just a trough, or is it an upscale, I'll say MCS, mesoscale convective system? That was what the derecho was. That's the kind of system that could come through and bring us widespread severe weather. But I'm just saying right now that's a possibility. I'm definitely not saying that on television during the day today because I don't want to scare anybody. That's something that you still say derecho. Here we are 14 years later, and it's something that is ingrained in our memories.
Yeah, no power for multiple days. That was
that
was wild. But what I was going to ask you, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the heat continued. I mean, you had
it
people
was
at 100,
brutal.
203, and they didn't have heat for a week.
I had a bunch of high school friends in town for a high school reunion, and they were staying at my house.
Geez.
It was, we tried to cool ourselves off with alcohol. That doesn't work in extreme heat.
Right? That doesn't work.
Yeah. So are there chances before Saturday, though, of strong storms in the evening with this heat?
Yeah, I mean, you need, when you have an area of high pressure like this over top of us, high pressure is sinking air. So it typically does not allow for a lot of storms if the high pressure area is right over us. It's going to be right over us tomorrow, right over us on Thursday. Now, that can't stop storms from happening, but it does help to stop them from developing. But there are a couple of areas that could develop, one of which tomorrow would be along any kind of a bay breeze that we have along the Chesapeake Bay, and a lot of times that the bay will set off a little bit of a boundary. It's a little breeze. It comes in off Chesapeake Bay. If you live by the bay, or if you live by the ocean, you know what I'm talking about. You'll be sitting at 96 degrees and it's super hot, and the next thing you know, you go, oh wait, I got a cooling wind, and the temperature drops down to 84. That's a breeze that comes in, but that breeze also goes up into the atmosphere as well, so it can create storms. So there's a chance tomorrow and Thursday that we have a sea breeze or a bay breeze come in. So that would be areas like Anne Arundel County, northern Prince George's County, up around the Baltimore area. That's the best chance. And then, of course, any storms that form could be strong to severe. And then you always look back towards the mountains. A lot of times the mountains will heat up a little bit differently than the rest of the area. So the mountains actually help to produce thunderstorms. And if any of those storms are able to come off the mountains, that could be something that we watch too. But I'm really watching for Friday and Saturday, and then again Sunday and Monday too. Sunday and Monday have a good chance.
Yeah, I was going to ask, when's relief? When does relief come?
Relief comes after Monday. So we get a little bit of a system on Monday that gives us another chance of showers and thunderstorms, and then we start to see temperatures back in the upper 80s to around 90 degrees. Which by the time we get through next week, our average high is 90. The average high in the month of July is 90 degrees.
I didn't realize that we had an average high of 90. So,
yep.
What does this sort of tell you about the rest of the summer? Anything?
Well, so when I did my summer forecast, I said I do not expect a lot of intense heat. So if we get this, and it looks like we're going to, then my forecast was wrong for the intense heat part of that. I said we may hit 100 degrees once, maybe twice. We've already hit it once, which was a very interesting one. We can talk about that another time. But anyway.
Well, you had a cold winter, and you were right about that. We didn't get as much snow as we thought we would, but it was brutally cold for a long period of time.
Oh, it was wow. But yes, but with the heat, I think we're going to stay on the hot side here right on towards next week, and then it looks like it moderates again. The pattern switches back to what I was thinking, which is the heat is back towards the west. And then we have a little bit more of a trough in the eastern half of the nation, which would keep us at or below average a little bit more here as we make our way through July. Now, it doesn't mean we're not going to get hot, but it just means I think overall we're not going to see the extreme heat continuing or lasting too much longer.
All right. The best meteorologist in town, Doug Kammerer, is with us. I'm sure you recognize the voice. So I'll end with this. Back to Saturday. I remember about 2012 that it wasn't really forecasted in terms of the intensity. To be honest with you, Doug, I don't even think I knew what derecho and had never heard the word derecho before 2012. Right. So so how have we progressed from then until now in terms of being able to forecast these?
We can normally see these now a day or two out. We know we have the potential to get storms like that, but does that upstream, I say a mesoscale convective system, that is an organized area of thunderstorms that works its way across a region. And I say organized, it's a large region. So for the derecho for us, it came through the entire area got hit. But we average a derecho once every 2 to 5 years or so in the mid-Atlantic. And we had one a couple of years ago just up towards Philadelphia. So we're due, we're actually due for something like that, but we didn't use that term. But nowadays, as you know, Kevin, I mean, nowadays we're using terms that we didn't use 15 years ago because they're all over the internet, and we're now forced to use them. If I would have said, hey, we have a derecho coming in 2012, you would have been like, okay, well, what's a derecho? Nobody would know, and I got to explain it, which we did. And I did. I talked about that at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. I'll never forget that day. I definitely was talking about those storms coming through and the potential for strong storms later that night.
What do wind speeds hit during a derecho? Just curious. I have no idea.
Oh, they could be over 100 miles an hour. For us, it was our highest in this area was 92. Reston hitting 86. And it's the fact that it comes in so quickly. So it's not the 86 mile per hour.
Right. It's moving quickly.
It's moving quickly. So it's 0 to 86 miles an hour in a matter of a couple of seconds. So that's what happened. Wow. That's why we had so many trees down in our area.
All right. One more, I guess. Do you have an idea of what we're going to see next winter here on June 30th?
Okay. So this is the part that intrigues me a lot. We're moving into a strong El Nino. Some of the modeling continues to say one of the strongest El Ninos. And that typically for us gives us warmer than average winters, but also gives us the chance for blizzards. So I am looking at this year, and when I talk about, me, I look at the past to help predict the future. My analog years for something like this, I'm trying to remember.
Give me 2009, 2010?
It was close to that, but not close. Nope. But I do think that this year we have a much better chance, and we'll see how the El Nino progresses. That's why I don't give my forecast until the beginning of November. But it does look like this year would be one of those that it's going to be warmer than average, wetter than average, and does have the potential for monster storms. So I'm hopeful, as you are. We're talking about this right now. I'd much rather see a blizzard than 103 degrees. So let's get through the 103, and then let's have ourselves a nice little blizzard in January.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, both of them also, we both would acknowledge they're dangerous, and a heat wave in particular is. Yeah. So people make preparations, watch Doug. You don't want to be out too long during these temperatures. This is going to be serious stuff. I mean, part of me wants to root for a record-setting date, but God, that would be brutal. Brutal. Because
it would. I mean,
the index would be 115, probably.
Right. And the National Weather Service, if you look at what they're saying that, right now we have a excessive heat watch. That is for a heat index up to 115. Now, I don't think we'll get there. But it's close. A lot of times during the afternoon, you need the heat and the humidity. You need that dew point to stay up during the afternoon. A lot of times during the afternoon, during the peak of the day, the dew point drops a little bit. So we'll see if that's the case as well. But I don't want us to get over 110. And you're going to notice, I mean, your house is going to have a very hard time heating it or cooling itself. So we're going to be dealing with a lot of problems as far as air conditioning goes. So if you have any problems right now in your house, I would definitely recommend you get that checked out today or tomorrow because you do not want to go through this heat wave and have anything happen to your air conditioning.
This from Jeff on Twitter. Kevin says, quote, "I'm not trying to scare anyone," and then he talks about the derecho for 10 minutes.
I know.
Doug put out the caveat. This is just something he's keeping an eye on. He's not forecasting it at this point, but I would watch Doug certainly on Friday at the very least to see what will be happening on July 4th. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah,
as always.
100%. Yep, absolutely. Good talking to you.
You're the best. Appreciate it. Doug Kammerer, everybody. At Doug Kammerer on X. Jay Gruden next. We'll find out if he's changed his mind on Brandon Ayuk because he wanted him right after the draft. That's next. right now the former head coach of the Washington Redskins, Jay Gruden. We're going to get Jay's thoughts on Brandon Ayuk. But I did see that you had tweeted about the soccer. Are you into the World Cup?
Yeah, I've been watching it. It's pretty entertaining, man. I just don't like all the fake injuries, but other than that, obviously there's a lot to play for, and the competition's great, so it's been fun to watch.
So, do you like the game, or do you just like the pageantry and the importance of it?
I like the pageantry and the importance. This is probably about the only time I'll watch soccer. Like, I won't watch MLS or anything else. This is probably the only time I'll tune in and watch it, but it's been great.
Yeah, I every 4 years, it's like I'm not a soccer guy. I don't really like soccer, but I kind of like the World Cup. And this year, I mean, who knows? We'll see if the U.S. is good enough. But yeah, the flopping bothers me. And then the clock, the imprecise way the game's timed. It's very random. The plus minutes. It just, to me, it doesn't make sense. You'd like to know, if you're the team behind, how much time you actually have to score to try to catch up.
That would be nice. Yeah, I've noticed that the +6, +7, sometimes it goes over 7. Sometimes it goes like 9 or 10. I'm like, what the hell?
Right.
So, yeah, it is confusing to me.
Yeah.
And I don't know what they add on for injuries. I don't know. I guess every time there's an injury, they add time on. I don't know.
Yeah, but nobody knows except for the referee. And then it seems just kind of random because – oddly enough, if the team that's losing has they've got the ball and they're getting close to scoring, they just let them finish rather than have it sort of time out. Anyway, enough about soccer. I called you for one specific reason. The last time we talked, I think we were both on the same page, and I'm wondering if you've changed, but Brandon Ayuk, if he was going to become available, I was all in for Washington being all in on him. I know you were as well, assuming that he was healthy and medically cleared and all of that. You could get him on a real kind of prove it kind of a deal. Where are you now?
Yeah, he's kind of he's not helping himself in any way, shape, or form. First, he's got to get off the do not report list, or this what list that is. He's got to get off of that to become eligible. He's got to go to camp. He's still a right to the 49ers and the NFL right now, so there's nothing we can do or Washington can do. He just needs to just quiet down. He needs to get himself reinstated. He needs to do the things the right way, report to the 49ers, and then hopefully they release him and he becomes available. I mean, that's the only option that he has. So he's got to clean up his act or he won't be playing football anywhere.
Yeah, he could have been taking action to, end this thing potentially, and he's taken none of that action. What do you think the conversation with him talking so much about playing in Washington, what do you think the conversation is out in Ashburn with Adam Peters and company?
Well, I think they would rather him be quiet because now the 49ers have a loaded, they have something that the Washington obviously wants in a bad way. So I don't know if San Francisco is going to try to get some picks out of this deal or cut them. And I don't know what's going to, I really have no idea. But obviously it's a perfect match with Jaden and Brandon, and Adam Peters drafted him when he was there at San Francisco. So this is the ideal place for him to play if he can get through the hoops, which these hoops are pretty hard to get through right now, the way it looks.
Given what he has said, though, over the last couple of weeks about the 49ers, now about John Lynch, a creepy predator, he referred to him as, all of these things that have gotten really strange. I mean, he's gone scorched earth. I mean, nuclear scorched earth on John Lynch, on Kyle Shanahan, and now on his former agent, who he finally figured out how to fire over the weekend officially. How much of this, public flogging of his general manager, of his head coach, the provoking by him, how much of that would bother you in terms of taking on somebody capable of what he has done and said over the last 2.5, 3 weeks?
Well, first of all, I'd have to kind of look at my roster, what happened in OTAs and mandatory minicamp, and see exactly what we have at receiver. Am I happy with the group that I have? If I am, then I'm not going to mess with Brandon Ayuk. I'm not. But if we're not getting any separation other than Terry McLaurin, we need somebody else out there. Then I'm going to try to pursue this guy because he is a proven second-team Pro Bowl type player. And he's a really good athlete. I mean, he's big, he's fast, and he's what we need opposite Terry. In 2 tight end sets or 2 running back sets, he'd be perfect. But with all that being said, I don't think anybody knows him as good as Jaden or Adam Peters. So obviously, if they took a chance on him, they feel like they can control him a little bit. And I think moving forward, if there's a quarterback in the NFL that can, control him a little bit, his personality and all that good stuff, it would probably be Jaden. But if he's not getting the ball, is he going to resort to these old habits and go on videos and say, hey, this team doesn't know what they're doing? This David Blau guy is a moron. You know what I mean? You don't want that on your team either. So, but if it's a 1-year type deal, a prove it deal, like you mentioned, then you can always cut him. It becomes a problem.
Not that they are analogous by any stretch, because I don't know that there is an analogy or a previous sort of situation similar to the one with Brandon Ayuk. But you guys did bring in Deshaun Jackson, and there was a lot of smoke around Deshaun Jackson, who had been released by the Eagles. And, there were some issues in Philadelphia. There were some issues with some of the people that he was affiliated with outside of the team at that point. I remember, being on radio every day, and it was, a bit of a controversial signing. Not everybody was on board with bringing him on. What do you remember about signing Deshaun Jackson back in, 2014, I think?
I remember we signed him. That's all I remember. I don't remember having any conversations, I think.
This was another one like Alex Smith got traded and you didn't even know about it?
Deshaun Jackson. I said, great. I'll take him. This guy's fast as hell, and he's a big player. And Deshaun was never actually a problem. We had a couple instances here and there, but for the most part, he was a great guy in the locker room, and he was on time to meetings, and he was, he tried to pretend like he was some kind of tough guy, but he was probably one of the smartest guys we had on the team. He just tried to put his hood up over his head and try to sit in the meetings, act like he wasn't paying attention. He never made a mistake, So he was fun to have around. The only thing about Deshaun that you don't like is if he's not running 4.340, 4.25 40, he was not very good. If he was running 4.5, if he was tired, I said, get your ass out of the game, man, because you can't get any separation, and you're not a blocker. You're just in the way. You're just a player out there, But if he's running 4.25 or 4.3, this one I'm going to go get it.
When he came out and Ryan Grant went in, we knew you were running the football pretty much.
Or play action. We could have done a little play action
now
and then a little bootleg or something like that. But
yeah.
I mean that's important because Pierre's not going to want to switch sides and become a lead blocker or block a safety. Some of these safeties are pretty damn physical. And I told you that story when we motioned Deshaun Jackson and a bunch of the insert and block the safeties. I say, that's not the game plan, is it? No, we'll put Ryan in for that.
Yeah.
But it's important to have guys like Ryan. You got to have versatility. That's why I kind of like Brandon Ayuk, because he's a big guy. He can block, for the running game, because they're going to have to run the ball a little bit. So it'd be an important signing, I think. But yeah, you got to have versatile type receivers and different type of receivers on your roster. That's why I'm concerned about Washington. They have too many slot guys with Wayne and McCaffrey and the new guy they just drafted, Williams. They just need another outside physical type presence, in my opinion.
You've mentioned to me before that Deshaun was really a pleasure to coach, and you've said many times that he was really, really bright and was phenomenal, except for in the run game. But that is interesting to me. I mean, you're the head coach, you're an offensive head coach, you are considered to be one of the best guys when it comes to sort of a pass offense, and they didn't even ask you about whether or not you thought Deshaun would be. They just went and got him. Bruce did, because
that happens a lot. I mean, it happened a lot with other free agents. They asked, and I said no, and they still signed them. So, and sometimes I'd say yes, and we wouldn't sign them. You can't have everybody you want as a head coach.
Right.
When you say no on somebody, you appreciate that they would respect the opinion and not sign a son of a gun. But yeah, I was paid to do a job and coach a team and had fun doing it while it lasted.
Man, it makes it easier when you've got a player like Deshaun Jackson who can threaten the defense vertically like he was able to do. It's something that Brandon Ayuk was very good at doing the last time he was healthy and played. I mean, talk about from a defensive standpoint, the difference between having to prepare for a team without somebody who can really take the top off versus a team that can. I mean, it must have been just a lot easier to have a fresh Deshaun Jackson on the field rather than not having him on the field.
Yeah, for sure. The argument is when he's on the field, you say, well, you don't have to bring in Ryan Grant to run the ball because when he's on the field, you're going to get a lot of too high safety looks. They're going to protect the field with another safety over the top. So that's the positive of him in the running game. I mean, we get a lot of two shells of, quarter, half having to him, who would open up Pierre and open up Jordan Reed in the middle and all that stuff. So he's definitely a benefit to have. But when you're in a 4-minute drill and you're trying to run the ball and teams know you're going to load up the box, and then you got to have somebody a little more physical to block the point of attack.
He averaged 21 yards a catch in his first year here. 21 yards a catch. I just looked that up. And then he averaged, in 2015, he averaged 17.6 yards per catch and 17.9 yards per catch in 2016. That had to be for a high-volume receiver. That had to be close to tops in the league. Back then.
I think his career, I think it might be Randy Moss and him as the most 50-yard plus games, big play type games.
Yeah.
In his career, I think he might be 1 or 2. So he's just a big play waiting to happen. And most of them weren't. Hardly any of them were like 5-yard catches and runs after the catch. These were all bombs.
Bombs.
The balls are traveling 50 yards. Yeah. I mean, how many times you see Deshaun catch a little slant and run for 50? I mean, maybe once or twice, but.
Yeah.
Maybe on a screen pass if the blocking was perfect, but he was an over-the-top, break the defense down and roll type guy.
Yeah. And then when he went back to Philadelphia, remember playing Philly, he played well for you. And then when he went back to Philly, I think he burned us a couple of times in 2019, 2020, if I recall.
Yeah, he burned us on a 3rd and 12, and we played the stupidest coverage ever seen in football history. And I was very upset about that one. I'm still upset about that one.
Was that Joe Barry?
No, it was Wondusky. And they had this that long coverage where the
Minuski. That was Minuski. Yeah.
Mike linebacker was responsible for the deep middle, and we're basically, the other safeties are covering the half of the field. I'm like, God almighty. Fat Mike linebacker running through the post to cover Deshaun on 3rd and 12.
Yeah.
I asked him not to play that coverage, but it didn't work out.
All right. Well, back to Washington's current group of receivers, and you've already indicated a bit of a concern, but just elaborate a little bit on that. What if they have to go into this next season, or they're willing to go into this next season with what they have? Terry McLaurin, De'Ami Brown, Treylon Burks, the rookie from Clemson, McCaffrey, Van Jefferson they added. What if they have to go in with a group that, by the way, isn't that much different than the group in 2024? I would suggest one difference, and that is Terry's 2 years older and coming off a season in which he wasn't healthy for most of it. But what if they are who they are now heading into the opener against Philadelphia on September 13th from a wide receiver standpoint?
I'm very concerned about it. I'm concerned about the tight end room, to be honest with you. I'm not overly impressed with this kid from Tennessee. And then the running backs, where's the juice coming from the running backs? Ford and, these guys are Rashad White. These guys are good backs, but where's the juice coming from? Where's the big hitters going to come from other than Jade and possibly Terry if he's 100% healthy? It's hard. I keep telling everybody it's hard to go 12 plays, 80 yards on every drive. You got to have some splash plays. I don't know where the splash plays are going to come from other than Jaden on a scramble or a zone read or Terry on a post over the top.
I don't know if I've asked you about Diggs yet, but let's just assume for a moment that Brandon Ayuk's approach the last couple of weeks isn't really working for Adam Peters. What do you think about them signing Stephon Diggs?
Yeah, he'd be interesting. I mean, another veteran receiver to come in here. Like I said before, these guys have a pretty good idea, Blau and I think Coach Quinn, probably after OTAs on how they did and what type of need they have. They may feel pretty good about the receivers. They may really like Antonio Williams. I do not know. De'Ami Brown coming in will help out a little bit. Burks will help out a little bit. So maybe they right now, if they get Brandon Ayuk, that's just a bonus. And if not, they feel good about the guys that they have. I just looking at the roster, I would like a little bit more. So I just hope, Jaden, when he was at Arizona State and he had Ayuk for a little bit, I felt like he was looked for Ayuk or whatever, and if it wasn't there, he'd look to run right away. then he went to LSU, and he had two really good receivers, and he stayed in the pocket more and let plays develop and launched it. I just hope he doesn't return to the Arizona State days where he feels in the back of his mind, hell, nobody's going to get open, so I'm going to scramble all day, which brings up the injury risk to me. And that's my biggest concern moving into the field. Can we get separation on time where Jaden can let it go and not have to scramble for first downs all day?
Do you like Diggs at 30, 33 years old?
I just think that, McCaffrey, Lane, and the rookie are all kind of the same type of guy. Is Diggs a big enough target outside to be in a two-receiver set to be the Z or whatever it might be? I don't know if he's that way anymore, but I think that if they feel like Diggs would upgrade the roster, then yes, I would go get him because David Blau will do some more play actions and try to get other receivers involved a little bit more, hopefully, and maybe he will be. I don't know. To bring another type, that size, the type of receiver in here, I just don't know. Brandon Ayuk's the perfect ideal fit to me, if he's mentally stable and physically ready to go and can get off the roster of the 49ers.
Right. All right. A couple of other quick things. What did you make of the Myles Garrett trade from a few weeks ago to the Rams?
It was obviously he's obviously a game-changing type player, but Jared Verse is a hell of a player.
Right.
I mean, this guy's all first-team, all-rookie team. He's got a lot of years left ahead of him. And Myles, I don't know how many more he's going to play. I was surprised they gave him up. I think they had to for the trade to happen. But I really think Cleveland, if you got an aging veteran who wants out, they got a hell of a deal. They got some draft picks. They got a hell of a young defensive end that is not as good as Myles Garrett, don't get me wrong, but he is an up-and-coming pass rusher, and he's one of the top probably 10 to 12 pass rushers in the NFL right now. So at least they got something for him. They got something really good for him. Unlike when we lose Kirk Cousins, we get a third-round conditional pick. You know what I mean? That's what happens when you lose a veteran-type player like that, a good player. Well, hell, we better get something for him, and they did. I think Cleveland did a good job of getting something comparable to a guy of that, nature.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. As far as, Jay, the Rams and their roster goes, it would be pretty hard to find one as complete as their roster is right now after adding Garrett. I mean, they are loaded heading into this season.
Yeah, they don't really have any weaknesses. A couple offensive linemen I might be concerned about. The third receiver, does Devontae Adams still got the juice? I think he does. I think they're going to be fine there. The running back room is solid as hell. Maybe backup quarterback is Ty Simpson going to be ready if something happens to Stafford.
Right.
That's every team's roster. You lose your starting quarterback, you're screwed.
Yep.
But defensively, yeah, they're young, they're talented, they're fast, physical. To have an offense of that magnitude and then a defense to counter with what they do, if the Rams get a lead and forced to throw the ball against them, they're tough. And then who knows? Aaron Donald comes out of retirement. Oh God, what the hell?
Yeah. I don't know if you saw this from today. Chris Johnson, running back from Tennessee Titans days, one of the fastest we've ever seen, revealed this morning he's been diagnosed with ALS, which is really, really sad. He's only 40 years old. But I was just curious. I don't remember. I'm sure we played Tennessee when you were the coach at some point, but maybe not with him. It wouldn't have been with him on the roster, I don't think necessarily. What do you remember?
We had Derrick Henry.
Yeah, exactly. We got Derrick Henry in 2018. What are your memories of Chris Johnson as a back?
I think he's one of the best of all time, really. I think his explosiveness coming out of the backfield is unmatched. I mean, this guy he's faster than anybody to touch the ball out of the backfield, I think. So, yeah, he's a dynamic player and that's why I'm talking about these big plays. These 80-yard runs are hard to come by. You give it to Chris Johnson, he finds one little hole. You're not catching the son of a gun. So you got to have players like that somewhere, somehow. And he's one of the best big play running backs to ever play the game.
Yeah, he really is. You would have probably, we may have played him when he was in Arizona, maybe. I don't know. But he was probably more likely when you were in Cincinnati. All right. Really appreciate you doing this. Just wanted to get your updated thoughts on Brandon Ayuk. Really appreciate it, as always, Jay.
All right, you got it.
Jay Gruden, everybody, very concerned about the wide receiver room. Not even impressed with Tennessee tight end. The Tennessee tight end he referred to, that would be Chig Okonkwo. I got this from Jesse. Jesse writes, Kevin, so based on your change of heart on BA, meaning Brandon Ayuk, I'm guessing you have information that the team is out too? Jesse, I'll answer that when we come back. Kevin Sheehan Show on the Team 980 and the team980.com. So Jesse sent this tweet to me after yesterday's show. A lot of conversation on Brandon Ayuk yesterday. Kevin, so based on your change of heart on BA, meaning Brandon Ayuk, I'm guessing you have information that the team is out too. Jesse, I don't have information that the team is out on Brandon Ayuk. I feel confident that they did have interest in Brandon Ayuk, as in, say, 3 weeks ago or a month ago. I feel pretty confident that there was certainly interest and, the likelihood that they would certainly kick the tires at the very least if and when he was released. I don't know anything for sure about how they feel right now, but I think common sense would lead most of us to think that, at the very least, they are having second thoughts. And that's at the very least. More likely is that they're not really very excited about doing anything now with Brandon Ayuk. I think the position that he's put them in is a much more difficult position to make a move. A couple of weeks ago, you had, the red flags, but they weren't, dark red. You had the, voided guaranteed money, which clearly looks like the 49ers had the right to do it based on him not, doing what he was supposed to do contractually, allow them to monitor his rehab by showing up once or twice a month. We had the videotaped, 100-mile-per-hour trip around Levi's Stadium that got posted to social media, which has led to an arrest warrant for him, misdemeanor traffic, violation. Those are, not the brightest things. They are judgment-related issues, but as I said all along during that period of time, being a little bit nuts, not being the brightest bulb on the bush, being a little bit immature, those aren't disqualifiers for, really good, talented players in any sport, But do I think that the last 3 weeks of this video series have changed their minds? Common sense would say that it definitely has. And part of it is just because it just would have been a lot easier before all of this. Now you're really sticking your neck out. Not only are you, Adam Peters, really sticking your neck out and convincing and needing to convince your owner and ownership that, hey, we've built this great culture over the last 2 years, and we're going to bring in this guy that literally has gone on a 3-week scorched earth tirade on, where not only has it been insulting and provoking and everything else, there are people that have written that it could be conduct, detrimental. But I doubt that they could get to that point personally on conduct detrimental. We've seen much worse cases not lead to conduct detrimental, suspensions or anything like that. But you're going to have to stick your neck out. You're going to have to go out on a limb if you're Adam Peters to say, hey, we got this. This is what happened. But he feels comfortable here, and I've known this guy, and our quarterback's known this guy. Look, at the same time, the quarterback's sticking his neck out on the line. The perception, whether it's reality or not, is that if they were to sign Brandon Ayuk, it's because Adam Peters and Jaden Daniels know him. And they are saying, we got this. We got this. So you enter into this deal, even if it's a low to zero risk deal in terms of what your contract offer is to him, in a far different situation than you would have 3 weeks ago. So, yeah, common sense to me says that at the very, very least, they're having second thoughts, but more likely than not, they're not excited to do anything right now. Got a long way to go between now and the beginning of the season, and things change. They do, and apologies can be made, and things can be taken back, and more, data and information can come out. But that's kind of where I would think. I would be surprised based on the last 3 weeks if Washington signs Brandon Ayuk, if he actually ever becomes available. And that's part of the issue, right? Is he doesn't appear to be super serious about becoming available. His actions or inaction doesn't speak to that. I wanted to go back because some of you, I wanted to go back and the long video, by the way, nothing since yesterday, right? He's gone quiet. This is real quiet when he has not put out a video in more than 24 hours. Am I right? Nothing today?
I have not been notified that he has posted anything. And
Are you on the notification list?
I am on the notification list.
Okay, good. That's a requirement.
It is.
Because I'm telling you, people are hanging by a thread. They're on the edge of their seats for the latest Brandon Ayuk episode to drop. But I wanted to go back and play what was the longer video from over the weekend. It was 3+ minutes, right, Max?
Yeah, it was
something
over
like
3
that.
minutes, like 3:40 something.
Yeah, and it really was the part in which he was trying to explain his side. I don't think he did a great job of it, but that's a matter of that's subjective, and there's perspective involved. But I wanted to go back and just play the beginning of it because it kind of gives the tone and texture of the entirety of it. There's a lot of bleeps. There's a lot of F words. He uses the N word over and over again in singular and in plural. But I wanted to play like the first minute of this again, because there's at least one part of it that I think some of you are missing. Here it was.
All right, y'all. So I understand that a lot of y'all is new here. And so I'm going to just fill y'all in and give y'all the details so that everybody can understand. The reason why the agent being fired is such an important detail in this whole story is because that agent is also the agent of the general manager for that one team. And
Stop it right there. Stop it right there, Max. So I don't know where some of you get this is, a major violation of trust. And you don't understand something. And I want to just be clear about something because I have a feeling many of you don't know this, and it's fine. Why would you know this? NFL general managers, for the most part, have agents. Those agents come from, more often than not, the same agencies that represent players. So it is not uncommon at all for an NFL general manager or an NFL front office executive or a head coach to have the same agent as players have. So Athletes First, which is one of the bigger agencies, represents a lot of GMs and a lot of players. So it's not crazy at all that John Lynch has an agent that is the same agent as Brandon Ayuk. Now, if Brandon was somehow accusing John Lynch and his agent of something untoward, I don't know what he's alleging. He doesn't allege anything. He just says, this is the problem, is John Lynch has the same agent. So the implication, even though he doesn't say it, he's implying that somehow, I guess, they are colluding together to take his money or to financially somehow injure him or hurt him or whatever. I'm not really sure what he was alleging. But I have a feeling many people listening don't know that general managers have agents. Most of them do. And a lot of their agents come from the same agencies that represent players. See, the group, if he believes that they've done something wrong together, that he has been taken advantage of, they have ripped him off, whatever it is, that's what the NFLPA is for. That's where you go to the NFLPA. You go to the Players Association, your union, which, by the way, over the weekend, he ripped them too, but not completely, because I think he said there were a few people at the NFLPA that are okay. But the rest of them are, I think the word was trash, or maybe it was another word. I forget. I've gotten lost on a lot of these videos, but he did rip the NFLPA. But if a player is truly being taken advantage of, in an injurious way or in a hurtful way, financially hurtful way. The NFLPA has a duty to protect the player. So that's really where he should turn to. Now, he hasn't turned to anybody, as we know. I mean, there's been a lot of talking. There's been no action. Now, keep in mind, like we've talked about this for months, the NFLPA did not help him out with respect to the $30 million, let's just call it $30 million, of voided guaranteed dollars from his contract. At least they haven't, as of now, they haven't done that. And that is unprecedented. All of the former players, I mean, that's a big problem too, is that there's not a lot of support for this guy from people who are actually closer to it. But Dante Whitner was the first, I remember for me, when he came on my show 2 or 3 months ago and said, this is crazy. This is just stupid. It's terrible judgment. You've got to be concerned about this. The fact that the NFLPA wouldn't even back him up on this. So, I don't know why they didn't back him up. I don't know why they didn't support him. I don't know why they haven't fought it. The only conclusion you can come to is that the 49ers had a clear-cut, legitimate case to void millions of dollars of his guaranteed contract. You have to come to that conclusion. As of now, maybe something will be done about it. We'll see. All right, continue. I wanted to get through another, 30 to 45 seconds of that. So continue it, Max.
And that agent really started this whole because I fired his ass, but he want to text my wife like he's smart. You don't ever text my wife. Your ass fired. Your ass grass. Get up out of here. Get gone. So he is also the agent for the general manager of that team. And these all weirdos, creepy predators. I would never, ever, ever these. I would never, ever, ever with these. I don't care how long I gotta wait to get to you, my baby. But if it involves with them first, I'm waiting.
The end of that's very interesting. I'll get to that in a moment. But real quickly, like if Brandon, like it may be somebody new, the next video that comes out, but if he's really saying that his agent started all this just get a new agent and move on. And as far as like he texted his wife, I can't believe how many of you are like, well, that crossed the line. It did? You've got enough information to say that the agent texting his wife crossed some sort of line. Look, he was clearly pissed about it. He didn't like it. But wouldn't you imagine that agents sometimes know the families, know the wives of the players they're representing, and even occasionally communicate with them? You don't think that's a possibility? Look, I could come up with a lot of appropriate reasons for the text and a lot of inappropriate reasons. Now, he's implying that the texting of his wife was inappropriate, but he doesn't say why. I don't know why. It could be that he's just in this mode of, you're done, don't text my wife, don't text me, but he didn't fire him officially until over the weekend. Now, that could be just a matter of paperwork. I understand that. It's very possible that when he said he fired him in November, he told him, you're done, you're fired, I don't want you to be my agent anymore. There's no indication that he replaced his agent with anybody else. Certainly you would think if he had an agent right now, there may be a different way he'd be handling this, but that would assume that he would actually listen to whatever advice there was. But with respect to the texting of his wife, I see so many people coming to conclusions on this. Look, maybe you know more about this than I do. I don't know why he texted the wife. I don't know why John Lynch drove to his house. I can come up with a lot of inappropriate reasons for it. I can come up with a lot of appropriate reasons for it. I think most reasonable people could. Now, he implies that these two are somehow in cahoots to hurt him and perhaps hurt his wife and family, and they're weirdos and they're creepy predators. I mean, maybe a little bit more information as to why, other than they texted my wife and the general manager drove to my house. I mean, you need a little bit more information than just the big white dude, Lynch, is coming to my house. Um, I that last part when he says, weirdos, creepy predators, and he says, I would never, ever F, and then he uses the N-word with these plural. I don't care how long I got to wait to get to you, my baby. By the way, when he said that, he was holding a football with the Commanders logo on it. So if you're wondering who his baby is our team, or maybe our quarterback. But he says, if it involves effing with them N words, I'm waiting. This is the part where it's just like, dude, affect your outcome a little bit. Take some action. You so badly want to come to Washington and play here. I think those chances are slipping away if they haven't slipped away already. But you could have been doing something about that. You could be doing something about it. But he admits there, and I'm not suggesting that he won't change his mind in the next video, but that you're not going to face the things that you need to face to change your current status. You're not going to face them. Anything involving them, I'll wait. Wait for what? Wait for next year? Wait for they just get sick of it and eventually cut you? Look, they may get sick of it and cut him tomorrow. I have no idea how this will play out. I don't. But the bottom line is this guy hasn't taken any action. Hire an agent, file for reinstatement, show up, maybe before showing up, have some sort of, with your new agent, your new representation, some sort of, get together with the people you've been torching for the last 3 weeks. Speak your mind. Don't be afraid, but also get the thing to a conclusion somehow. And maybe that won't work, but you got to take some action. And 3 weeks of videos is talking. I know some of you think it's a grand strategy. And when I said that yesterday, it was sarcasm for those of you that didn't get it. We'll see. He ended that rant with, he's never stepping into that building again, except for on October 19th, when he comes through with that damn effing belt. October 19th, Monday Night Football, Washington in Santa Clara against the 49ers. I would put the odds right now of him being on the team and playing in that game at plus 300. 3-1 that it happens. Not, a favorite for it to happen anymore. I think a month ago, I would have been at minus 500 that he'd be on the team. All right. There is some Wizards news today related to that Anthony Davis report yesterday. We'll get to that next. Josh Robbins, who covers the Wizards for The Athletic, will join us at 12 because there's a lot going on, including a potential return to Washington for Russell Westbrook. We'll get to all that next. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. So yesterday, lots of reports, Shams at ESPN, Kevin O'Connor at Yahoo, that the Warriors were definitely interested in making a trade for Anthony Davis. That would have been part of the idea of putting Anthony Davis and LeBron James together with Steph Curry and Draymond Green. Draymond opted out of his player contract yesterday, his player option, excuse me. And, then all of the discussion for much of the day was about Anthony Davis potentially going to Golden State. And what would that look like in a deal? Jimmy Butler coming back to Washington, how many picks, how many players, etc. I mean, let me just say what I said yesterday before I get to what Brian Windhorst said this morning. To me, you have Golden State over a barrel. If they're the ones that are desiring this and desperate to make this so that they can bring LeBron in a reuniting situation with AD, you take everything you can from them. There's no way the Wizards should trade Anthony Davis unless they get more back from Golden State than what they had to send to Dallas to get him in the first place. This is what Brian Windhorst said this morning about the Anthony Davis trade discussions from yesterday.
Right now, I'm taking the Anthony Davis thing off the front burner. I do not have data that says that that's likely to happen. Now, I could change my information could change. I do not see traction from the Wizards to want to do that. The Warriors told Jimmy Butler they're not trading him. I think the focus right now is, can they get LeBron James away from the Los Angeles Lakers?
Yeah, I'm a big Jimmy Butler fan. I've always been a huge Jimmy Butler fan. I think he's one of the best clutch performers of the last 20 years in the postseason. I mean, playoff Jimmy. I mean, he has been incredible in the postseason. But 36 years old, coming off ACL, I don't think so. It would have to be part of something bigger. I want Anthony Davis playing in Washington next year. I really do, later this year. I want to, late October, whatever the, opening night of the NBA season is, I want them to trot out there with AD, Sar, AJ DeBonsa, Keyshawn George, or Trey Johnson, and Trae Young, with a lot of the other youngins, Will Riley, Koulibaly, etc., coming in off the bench. I want to see what that looks like. I am sick of not having any juice for Wizards games. I understood it, and I was fine with it because it was going to get us to a point where maybe they would have a chance. They've got a top 10-ish kind of a player when he's healthy in Anthony Davis. I obviously understand the odds of Anthony Davis playing enough games in 2026, 2027 to impact the season. But if he did, 44, 43 wins, 6 seed, 5 seed, be a lot more fun than what we've had the last, 8 years. That's for sure. I want to see that. Unless you got just an all-time outrageous haul for him. It would be interesting, right? If the Wizards basically didn't give up much. Chris Middleton, in company, Marvin Bagley, some picks. Everybody considered what they gave up to bring Anthony Davis here from Dallas to be peanuts because Anthony Davis was hurt. His value, his stock was down. Wizards pounced on it, took an opportunity to bring in a player to pair with another veteran player so that they could accelerate this development with their young group. They want their young group playing with a couple of veterans next year so that they're playing meaningful basketball for the first time in their young careers. I think it makes a lot of sense. But if you trade him away and you're just bringing back mostly picks without bringing back another major veteran player, and I don't even know where Jimmy Butler fits coming off ACL surgery, Davis fits. Like, that's a pretty good big point guard combo with Trae Young, Anthony Davis, if he plays. Big if. So I'm kind of glad to hear Windhorst say that this may not have legs anymore. In the meantime, there are reports, Mark Stein in particular, longtime NBA reporter, that Russell Westbrook might return to Washington. League sources tell Mark Stein that Washington has a level of interest in Russell Westbrook. Westbrook could potentially fill that gap as the backup one guard and provide great veteran leadership for guys like Bub and Riley, Bub Carrington and Will Riley. He's also cheap. You know, one of the true ironies about Russell Westbrook, or let me just say reveals, because I'm not sure most sports fans or NBA fans know this. He is, by all accounts, an incredible teammate, a tremendous leader. They said that about him when he was here. They say that about him everywhere he goes. I've always been a big Russ fan. I think I came to the conclusion several years ago that it's hard to win with him in the postseason if he is going to end up having the ball in his hands a lot, because he's never been able to slow it down like the game does in the playoffs. He plays at one speed, it's 150 miles per hour, and that's it. But another veteran leader to add to Trae Young, Anthony Davis, all the young guys, they'd be interesting in the East. I was telling Max this before the show. If this Kawhi Leonard deal to Toronto gets pulled off, he and Scotty Barnes will be one of the best two-way, top two player combos in the league. I don't think they'll be any worse than the third or fourth favorite in the Eastern Conference. And this assumes, right, that Jaylen Brown is out of the conference. He goes somewhere. I don't know where he's going to land. But the East, New York's going to be the favorite coming back. But, they were a 3 seed last year before making their run. The East is kind of open a little bit. The West is not, with OKC and San Antonio. I think Jaylen Brown, by the way, to Denver makes sense to me. Jokic is the one that desperately needs another star player. How are you going to waste Jokic as he heads towards his mid-30s by not giving him a legitimate chance to contend for a title against OKC and San Antonio? If they don't do anything, they're not a contender. Josh Robbins covers the Wizards for The Athletic. He'll be my guest next. NBA free agency officially in terms of negotiations ability starts right now at 12:01 p.m. here on June 30th. Joining me right now is Josh Robbins. Josh has been covering the Wizards for a few years for The Athletic. You can follow him on X at Joshua B. Robbins. So there's been a lot of Wizards-related stories over the last 24 hours. Do you believe any of them? Let's start with Anthony Davis.
In terms of him being traded to Golden State?
Yes.
Is that I find that very difficult to believe. I just don't think
Why?
that there's really I don't think there's any traction to it. I'm not sure that Golden State wants Anthony Davis in the first place. I think I think Golden State wants LeBron James. And I don't believe the Wizards have any interest in trading Anthony Davis at this time. I don't. If you were to, the natural question that I would suggest you ask me, and so I'm going to answer it for you, is
sure. What
is the likelihood that AD starts the regular season with the Wizards? Or I think he'll be on the roster to begin the regular season with the Wizards. That's my take on this.
I'm personally glad that you said that and believe that, and I certainly felt that way. I had Will Dawkins on the show on Friday and replayed it yesterday here on the radio show, and that's what I kind of got the sense the plan for the team is. Like, Josh, why would they acquire him when they acquired him, which, by the way, was perceived to be for next to nothing, and his value hasn't increased since they acquired him? When you say not now, I mean, I could see that if he plays and his value increases, that a trade deadline deal wouldn't be out of the question if they haven't signed him. But maybe the chronological next question is, do you think they'll sign him to an extension in August?
That's the question. It's not even an open secret. Everyone in the league, including other executives from other teams, tell me that Anthony Davis wants to get paid. And he wants a significant extension, whether it's a max extension or not, I'm not clear. But that's what's at issue here. I get the sense that Anthony Davis would be happy to be anywhere that is willing to give him an extension for the value that he views he demands, or commands, not demands. And so if the
including
Wizards and
here,
Anthony Davis, anywhere that would give the money, I would think. And that includes here. And that's my sense of it. The question I would think is, what kind of willingness would the Wizards have to re-sign a 33-year-old player who's after his post-prime, who has had significant injury issues? And I would imagine that is what the internal deliberation the Wizards would have is. It's one thing to sign a 28-year-old Trae Young to a deal 4 years over $213 million. Trae Young is 28 or will be 28 in the next few days. Or before the season. He doesn't have the injury history that Anthony Davis does. And Trae Young
he's younger.
He's younger, and he's about to enter his prime or is in there already. Now, we'll see if he's lost a step, as a lot of his detractors say. We're going to find that out October, November, when they play games that matter. But there's a big difference between offering Anthony Davis close to a max extension, and I'm not sure that's exactly what he's looking for, and agreeing to re-sign Trae Young for what would have been the max that he could have signed for another team.
So I understand the difference. I think everybody understands the difference between, a long-term for Trae Young versus a long-term for Anthony Davis. But you're doing a great job, and I appreciate it, of coming up with some of the key questions, but you didn't answer the question as to whether or not the team will have the stomach to give him a deal that makes him say yes and stay here.
I'm not sure that. I don't know. The answer is I don't know. And anyone who says,
well, which way would you lean?
I would think that he's got to show that he can stay injury-free, that he can buy in, that he can be a good teammate. That's what I think would be necessary for the Wizards to choose to re-sign him. I think that he would have to prove himself to a degree, which is something that is not something that I think would be something he would love to hear. I mean, this is an all 75 level player, at least he used to be. So I don't think that the market in the league for Anthony Davis is what the market Anthony Davis thinks is out there for him or should be out there for him. So do I think that they're going to come to an agreement in August? Only if they can reach a number where the Wizards feel like they're not impeding their ability to build out the rest of the roster. I would think that he would have to, it would almost have to be like, show us that you can help us. And, I think that's what their attitude would be. I don't think that they would reach an extension in August, but part of that may also determine on what kind of feedback AD and his representation get from the 29 other teams in the league. Is there anyone out there willing to pay him the money that he feels like he deserves? And I would just say, look at what his trade value was.
Right.
Next to nothing. And therefore, I would say there's probably not a team out there that's willing to pay him what AD would think that he deserves.
Would there be reason to be concerned about his enthusiasm for the upcoming season if they don't reach a deal in August?
Perhaps. I mean, this is someone who forced his way out of New Orleans, I believe. I mean, I think that's a fair way to describe it. But this is, how much leverage does he have? Again, I would point to what his trade value was how many months ago? 4 months ago.
Yeah. It
was next to nothing. And as he has said, and he said it publicly, I'm under contract. And I think his reputation would take a severe beating, and his value across the league would take a severe beating if he were to say hold out. I don't think holding out for him is going to happen. This is not like I don't mean to bring the Commanders into this, but this is not a Mark Rippon situation coming off of winning the MVP in the Super Bowl.
Good for you. Good reference.
This is not a Terry McLaurin
and he held out and he struggled early in that season. So I mean, I think because of, all of our experience as NBA fans with Anthony Davis, I want to see him enthused and playing, and even if he's not on a new deal, trying to get to that new big deal with outstanding play. Because you and I have talked about this previously. I think we talked about it right after the trade. I hesitate to think that he'll, I'm certainly not going to wager on him playing 65 plus games, enough games to make an impact. But if he did, and he and Trae Young together with the young core, I think they could be a 42, 43, 44 win team and be a 6 seed in the Eastern Conference next year. And I remember that you were a little bit less hesitant to consider that as a possibility, but that's what I'd like to see. That's what I'm hoping for. So I'm glad that you said that you don't think the chances of him being dealt are very good. Where do you stand if he's enthused, if he's healthy, if he plays a significant majority of the games? What's their upside in 2026, 2027?
Well, when you said 42 wins in the 6th seed, I looked up the standings last year. In the East, the 6th seed.
Yeah, that would be play-in territory. So say 44, 45 to get to the 6. What was the 6? Atlanta or Toronto?
46.
Okay.
Both the 5th and 6th seed, 46 wins. So next year, even teams like a Brooklyn is now incentivized to not tank.
Right, sure.
So I think wins will be a little bit tougher to come by, certainly on the bottom end of the scale.
Exactly.
Play-in is more than a reasonable expectation. I've had a few execs say if everything goes right for Washington, maybe they could get into the 6th seed. And this is the Wizards' new world now. They're entering seasons with reasonable expectations that they'll be not just competitive, that they'll be at least above average. And so is a 6th seed reasonable? Reasonable, but I would think that a lot would have to go right. And one of those would be Anthony Davis is healthy for the majority of the games, the overwhelming majority of the games, like 68 or more, and that the young guys continue to develop, because that's really what the upcoming season is about.
That's right.
They're not going to go into the upcoming season is about developing the young guys. No one more importantly than AJ DeBonsa. But the difference this year compared to last is that the coach isn't going to be going into games with both of his hands tied behind his back,
right?
Where they're actually going to be trying to win these games. And so I do anticipate there'll be some experimentation, but with the goal of trying to win.
Yes. By the way, I would say, disagree or agree with me, I would say that their only chance to be in that low to mid 40s win total and in, vying for, let's just say, the 6th seed, staying out of the play-in, is if Anthony Davis plays, as you said, 68 plus games. If he's not a part of it, this is going to be a 30-win kind of a team, even if AJ DeBonsa wins Rookie of the Year. Cooper Flagg won Rookie of the Year last year, and Dallas won 26 games. Their only way to a playoff series, I'm talking about a playoff series, is with Anthony Davis being Anthony Davis next year. Do you agree or disagree with that?
I disagree with that, because anything can happen in the play-in. And
you think they'd reach the play-in without Davis playing, 60 some odd games?
Probably not, but I wouldn't put it.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
So what I think everyone, including me, has underestimated is just how much the Wizards tried to lose last year. I know it sounds funny, and I'm not trying to be flippant about it. I think what is really unknown is how good the young core really is. Yes, they showed certain individual abilities, but were they held back in terms of winning in such a way that it shrouded how good the kids are?
It's a fair question to ask.
It's a fair question to ask. And so now when those reins are taken off, those restraints, what happens? I can't wait to find out. Now, I think your opinion is probably correct, but like a 10th seed, the 10th seed going on the road to begin the play-in, that's not unreasonable, even if Anthony Davis plays only 60 games or 55.
Josh, the flip side to the, there's a mystery around the upside with all of these young players because of the environment in which they were playing, which was not nearly as competitive as it will hopefully be this year. The flip side is that what happens when these young players face teams that take them more seriously because they're not tanking. And maybe something on the lesser side gets revealed about some of the younger players that I think we have legitimate hope for. It's hard to know for sure without them playing in games that matter to both teams more often than not.
100%. And thank God you're the radio professional, because you're a lot more articulate than I am.
Well, I don't know about that.
Well, yes, you are. Yes, you are. Yep.
So what else should we expect today and in the next few days? There's also, by the way, there's breaking news. LeBron James has informed the Lakers that he is going to be playing in 2026, 2027, but he will not be playing with them. He is moving on, and he will play elsewhere. I'm guessing Golden State, right? It's got to be.
I don't know about that. That's beyond my expertise. Not necessarily Golden State. I think LeBron is the kind of player who likes to be recruited. And so I'm not convinced. Is it possible? Yes. I'm sure that Golden State wants him. I'm not sure that Golden State wants Anthony Davis, but I am sure that Golden State wants LeBron.
I mean, I think about it, Josh, and I've mentioned some of these teams recently. You know, one of the teams that I just can't believe hasn't been a big part of the conversation. I'm not saying that that means anything. We'll find out starting today and through the next few days. But how does Denver proceed forward in the Western Conference with Nikola Jokic at 31 years old without giving him another star player and giving him a chance to compete for a Western Conference title? That's the team out west that's gotten lost in the last couple of years, because we all thought after 2023, look out, they're going to win titles, plural. And then it's OKC, and I still think OKC probably would have won the title with Jalen Williams had he been healthy, but that's another story. But you know, guys like Jaylen Brown and LeBron are different, clearly, but I'm wondering where these players, this is going to be a very interesting next few hours and days, I think, in the NBA. But back to the Wizards for a moment. You know, there are reports out there that they could be interested in reuniting with Russell Westbrook. What do you think the chances of that happening are?
Low. I mean, I think that's almost laughable.
Why?
I don't see how he fits into this team. Now, I would imagine that Anthony Davis would like to see another veteran presence added to the roster. I don't think Russell Westbrook is the right kind of veteran presence.
Okay, who would be?
Well, that's a great question. You know, up until about 45 minutes ago, I would have said, and he's not the same type of veteran who Russell Westbrook is. I would have thought that in terms of adding someone to the big man rotation would have been Robert Williams III.
Yeah,
but
Portland. Right
before you and I got on the phone, apparently he has agreed to return to Portland. By the way, the formal negotiating window for players on other teams is at 6:00 tonight, not noon. So if there is news of that nature, it's not going to happen until 6:00.
What do you have any guesses on what you think
is a good fit for this team? I just don't. And I think that one of the reasons why people would think that he is that there are now 4 people within the Wizards who have experience working with him, most notably Brian Keefe and Will Dawkins. But I just find it difficult to believe that locker room can handle that ego. That's me talking now. I don't think he's a good fit for what the Wizards are trying to build.
You know, it's interesting in saying that, and I'm looking up who wrote the story. But I think one of the things that I've learned about Russell Westbrook, you know, over the last few years is what a tremendous, valuable locker room veteran presence he's been. You said ego. There have been stories written about Russell Westbrook about how players and teams, I remember Tommy Shepard telling me, you have no idea how beloved he is in this locker room. Now, I personally used to love Russ. I don't think you can win with Russ being your best player or your second best player or even your third best player because his game just doesn't fit the postseason. He plays at 150 miles per hour. The game slows down. He can't. But the word about Russell Westbrook in recent years is he is of value as a veteran in a locker room. You think differently?
I think he can be very difficult on young players. Not in the sense of hazing. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. But I think that he is so demanding of young players that he can hijack a developmental plan. Not in terms of, work on this instead of what the team is telling you. But I think that if you don't have the right kind of youngsters who are used to being pushed that way, that it could have a negative effect. And I know that Denny Avdia was said to be someone who appreciated Westbrook's kind of pushing. And Westbrook was kind to him when they weren't playing or practicing. But I think that if you were to get some truth serum involved here, that Denny would acknowledge that it was not always easy to be Westbrook's teammate.
All right. Do you have a guess on what they'll try to add now that Robert Williams was probably your first guess and he's, back with Portland?
Well, he wasn't necessarily my first guess.
Okay.
He was someone who I thought could have fit. Problem is, this isn't necessarily going to be something that's going to be filled by free agency. It could be via trade. Porzingis is off the table. He's going back to Golden State.
Right.
What I would think that they would be, the qualities that I think that they would be looking for would be something along the lines of someone who can protect the rim and rebound. But this is not a particularly strong big man class. They certainly have trade exceptions that they can work with. They have the non-taxpayer mid-level that they can work with. But this is not necessarily going to be something that's solved today. It could take a week, could take more until they find their best option there.
Thank you, Josh.
But certainly,
as always,
without question.
Really appreciate it. Good stuff.
Yep.
Josh Robbins, everybody from The Athletic, does a great job covering the Wizards. Serena's getting ready to debut at Wimbledon. I think that's kind of exciting at 44 years old. We got some stuff on that. The Nats with a tough night last night, but we'll get around the world of sports and touch on some things that we haven't already on the show today. That's next. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. From RC writes, Sheehan, I wouldn't worry about JD5. He's not bending to Ayuk if he comes here. It'll be the other way. Jaden wears a crown, not a helmet. Yeah, that's a good point. That's fair. I mean, I think on some level, if Jaden couldn't handle the pressure of having Brandon Ayuk, who would be an absolute controversial, if not very polarizing, signing, if he couldn't handle that, he's not the guy that we think he is. I'm with you on that, RC. Appreciate that. I think that is just one of the considerations. There are many others in signing him. The Nats lost last night to the Red Sox. They dropped back to 500 now, and they're kind of, with some of the other teams in front of them, playing decent baseball. They're now, like, at that point where they're 2.5, 3 games out of the wild card mix. That's not a lot, and there's a lot of time to go. But, man, there are a lot of teams right now in the mix in the National League for not one wild card spot, all three of the spots. And it'll be fun to watch. Last night, it was nice to see James Wood homer for the first time in about 2.5 weeks. Leadoff homer in the top of the first. They gave the Nats a lead, but immediately they got hammered in the bottom of the first, and it was never really a game after that, losing to Boston 6-3. Serena Williams is about to open up her comeback at Wimbledon on the grass, where she's had just a little success in her career. She's playing Maya Joint. Maya Joint right now is a player that is ranked, I think her WTA ranking, I saw it recently, was in the 80s. And she's Australian. She's actually favored, but not by a lot. What are the current odds right now on that match? What did you say they were? You told me during the break.
I'm pulling it up. I'm just refreshing. Want to make sure. Serena is plus 105, Joint minus 126.
Okay, so basically a toss-up in this match. Serena returning to singles action. She's going to play doubles with her sister Venus as well. This match hasn't started yet. I think it was scheduled to start, but is going to start in about 10 to 15 minutes, or right around 1 o'clock, I guess, because some of the matches on center court have gone much longer. 24 Grand Slams, the most ever. And at Wimbledon, she has won 7 times, her last time being in 2016. That was the next to last major that she got. The last major she won, you've got to go all the way back now to 2017. So she was actually 35 years old when she won the Australian Open. Yeah, 20, the most in the Open era in terms of her singles Grand Slam titles. And I heard her interviewed the other day. She said she's not even thinking about winning another Grand Slam. She's got a serene, no pun intended, overall, approach to this. She certainly expects to be super competitive. I think she's one of the great competitors of certainly the 21st century, going back to the very end of the 20th century. She won her first major at the U.S. Open in 1999. Now, that was the only major that she won in the 90s. Everything else followed into the early 2000s. But she's certainly, a type A, hyper-competitive, all-time great competitor in sports, individual sports in particular. I'm looking forward to seeing her back. It would be great if she played well and worked her way into the draw, where she actually became, a threat to do something. Look, if she's still got that big booming serve, it's possible on grass that she could win a few matches. I'm looking at her draw right now. She plays the winner of a 29 seed. All right. And then could get the 3 seed, Swiatek, the Polish star, in the 3rd round. So I would guess that she's got a chance to win a couple of matches here. in her return. We'll see. She'll also be playing doubles. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. You mentioned to me during the break that you were going to put up our Waldorf Honda X poll.
Very few times I get
day.
to put up things like this related to the greatest.
It's kind of
in our sport.
absurd.
A little.
It's kind of absurd, but LeBron James, the breaking news here in the last 20 minutes, has informed the Lakers that the franchise, the Lakers, can move on without him because he's going to play next year in 2026, 2027, but he is going to play somewhere else. So the somewhere else, as of this moment, I think Max thought it would be interesting if we suggested that the somewhere else was Washington.
I mean, he wants to play
Remember,
he wants to play with AD so bad.
He
Why
wants
not?
to play with AD so bad. So it's possible. So the question for our Waldorf Honda Twitter poll of the day, by the way, waldorfhonda.com, is hell yes or hell no on LeBron to the Wizards. Of course I would take LeBron on the Wizards.
Some people might not want him to mess up with the team's young chemistry, Kev.
Yeah, maybe. I mean,
not me. I would love it.
He'd be a tremendous veteran to have. Now, he would probably play AJ DeBonce's position. But
mentor him.
They could go small. They could go LeBron at the 4, AD at the 5 with Sarr off the floor, DeBonce at the 3, Trey Johnson or, Keyshawn George at the 2, Trae Young at the 1. That's not happening. Look, I think Cleveland's a possibility. I think that the Golden State's a possibility. LeBron's only going to go to a team where he's got a chance to compete for a title next year. That's why Washington would not be a possibility. What about Boston with Jason Tatum?
I think
That'd
he's publicly said he would never go to Boston.
Yeah, I know. I have no idea. I've been thinking Golden State, but I'm sure there are other possibilities. As our guest Josh Robbins suggested, he wants to be wooed. He does love to be the center of attention this time of year. There is no doubt about it. But LeBron James, man, going to play another year as he tries to convince people like me, get off your lawn people like me, that he is the GOAT. Certainly he's going to have a career where it's going to stretch into his age 42 season. Does he turn 42 already, or does he turn 43 during the season? I forget. LeBron James.
December 20th, 1984.
December 30th, I have
30th, correct.
So he is 41. He'll stay 42. He'll finish next season at 42 years old. Yeah, no, not putting him in front of Mike. I'll never do that. I won't even put him in front of Magic. Sorry. He's great, though. No doubt about it. He's great. I wonder what happens with Bronny and the Lakers.
Well, his contract with the Lakers is fully guaranteed for next year, so
it is.
It's up for the Lakers to figure that out.
Okay. So he's going to stay in LA and he's not going to play with his father next year.
I would assume if he's got a roster spot in LA, why would he go anywhere else?
Yeah. Okay. I don't know where he ends up. Houston, Cleveland, Golden State. What about Denver? Like, I still look at that team as the team that I mean, part of it's just because I love Jokic, but how do you leave Jokic without a major addition going into next season to compete with San Antonio and Oklahoma City? Like, they lost in the first round to Minnesota. I know they were injured. Aaron Gordon was hurt. Peyton Watson was hurt and missed that series, and that was a big deal and probably a big reason why they got ousted. I actually really thought that Denver would have matched up well with San Antonio in a second-round series. Minnesota took him to 6. But you've got to give Jokic help. Bringing back Denver as isn't going to cut it. I think the interesting story, there's so many of them. That's interesting to me. What Kawhi does he get traded to Toronto? Brian Windhorst said this morning he expects that deal to happen today. And then Kawhi would sign a long-term deal with the team that he led to a title in 2019. And I'm telling you, that team with RJ Barrett and Scotty Barnes and company, you add a closer and a number one like Kawhi to that mix, they are an Eastern Conference title contender. The Raptors are next season, assuming he's healthy for the whole season. And he was relatively healthy and had one of the best regular seasons of his career. What do the Celtics do with Jaylen Brown? Where do they ship him? Jaylen Brown to Denver would be interesting to me. I think if I were a Celtics fan, I'd be like, you're not trading Jaylen Brown. Whatever is going on with he and Jason Tatum, figure it out. Players don't have to love each other. They don't have to be friends. They want a title together. They've already proven they can do it. Why would you give up on what on paper going into next year would be a championship contending team if both of those players are on that team? They were the favorites to get to the finals 2.5 months ago. They got beat in a 7-game series against Philly, and now Jaylen Brown's going to go, and the Celtics might be in rebuild mode. That's how quickly things change in sports. 2.5 months ago, literally, the Celtics were the favorites to go to the NBA Finals out of the Eastern Conference. And now, after losing a 7th and deciding game at home to Philadelphia in the first round, they're going to break the whole thing up. Jaylen Brown's out of here. After the year he had, he carried that team to the spot that they got into. If I were a Celtics fan, I'd say, please, work it out. Figure out how to get Jaylen Brown to stay here. And, all the people that say, well, they've already dissed him. He already knows that they're willing to trade him because he was on the trade block with the Giannis thing in Milwaukee. So what? It's a business. Get over it. Thick skin. Pay him. You can give him 2 years, $142 million as an extension. Hey, that trade talk? Actually, we were serious. We weren't able to do it. Now we want you to stay because that's the best thing for our team. And here's 2 years and $142 million to tell you how sorry we are about shopping you around. Now let's move on. Let's put our big boy pants on and let's go try to win a title in 2027. Is that every NBA insider is suggesting that is not a possibility because Jaylen Brown's already been dissed to the point where he doesn't want to play in Boston. And he wants to be the guy. And when Jason Tatum's there, he's not the guy anymore. They won a title together. Jaylen Brown was the MVP of that series. You're never going to get anything back resembling Jaylen Brown. Even the Giannis trade, for me, would have been a risky trade. Yes, Giannis has the potential to be what Jaylen Brown is and more, but his availability has always been in question in recent years. LeBron James, Waldorf Honda Twitter poll question of the day. Yes or no? Hell yes or hell no on LeBron to DC. It's not going to happen, clearly. Waldorf Honda. It all starts with a click. WaldorfHonda.com. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the Team980.com. Serena's got 23 Grand Slam titles. Thank you, Steven, for that. I was thinking of Djokovic. Djokovic has 24. Serena has 23. Djokovic has the most ever for men with 24, followed by Nadal with 22 and Federer with 20. Margaret Court has the most with 24, but in the Open era, Serena's got the most with 23. But all-time Grand Slam wins, she's technically one behind Margaret Court. 7 Australian Opens for Serena, 3 French Opens, 7 Wimbledons, and 6 U.S. Open titles. She makes her singles debut as part of her comeback in just a few minutes. The RFK master plan was unveiled this morning. The draft of the redevelopment plan around the RFK Stadium on the RFK site includes up to 6,000 homes, up to 2 million square feet of commercial development, 66 acres of parks and open space, new recreation, sports, and community facilities, miles of new riverfront trails and connections, and walkable access to the metro. That'll be an interesting thing to see how the metro piece develops with respect to how many people can get there by a 1 o'clock kickoff in terms of train capacity. The site for the stadium will include, so here's essentially, the stadium itself will be 130 feet tall with the roof dome. It will be a roofed stadium, not retractable, rising up to 194 feet under the, and will seat roughly 65,000, which I think is the perfect number. They'll certainly be able to increase that number for the purposes of a Super Bowl. I think you have to have 70 plus for a Super Bowl these days. An 89-page master plan released this morning by the D.C. Office of Planning for the 180-acre site at RFK. This is a $3.7 billion project, and the pictures look beautiful. They always do. But it will certainly become, a destination site in this town, not just on event days, but in the same way, Navy Yard and the Wharf and many other areas in town, which really started with Abe Poland and the resurrection of Chinatown around what was then the MCI Center in that area of town. Looking forward to it. 2030, the fall of 2030. And apparently the 2031 Women's World Cup will be a big event and one of the first major events played at our new stadium. Still have 4 more seasons, 26, 27, 28, and 29 in Landover. Let's hope that they are the best 4 seasons ever in Landover. But that will require this football team to have health that it didn't have last year and to really be much better on defense. At this point, 10 weeks and counting until we have real football to talk about. 10 weeks from today, we will be on the eve. So 2.5 months from today, we will be on the eve of the NFL season kicking off. We will already have enjoyed the first full college football weekend of the season. Labor Day will be behind us. It will be on a Monday night. And we will be getting ready for a Wednesday night, September 9th, Patriots at Seahawks Super Bowl rematch to kick off the season. That's going to be so much more fun and relevant than the conversations we're having now. Always are. But, man, I love when we get into that mode, especially with July beginning tomorrow, where we can legitimately get to Sundays and start saying, all right, only 9 left, only 8 left, and, only 6 left, 5 left until we actually see football on TV again. I'm talking about real football, the NFL. I know that there's spring football going on. Haven't paid attention. That first week, though, that Wednesday night, 2.5 months, 10 weeks from tomorrow night, Patriots at Seahawks. And then the next night, you get 49ers at Rams from Melbourne, Australia. Cannot wait. Washington, of course, opens up 4:25 p.m. at the Link in Philadelphia on Sunday, September 13th. Philadelphia currently a 5-point favorite in that game. There are a couple of big lines week one. You typically don't see them, but the Chargers are 11.5-point favorites over the Cardinals. You know, the LA Chargers essentially went out and changed their offensive line in the offseason. It's possible they're going to end up with, 4 to 5 new starters along the offensive line. They'll be getting Rashawn Slater back. Tyler Biotish is going to be the starting center, or at least he's penciled in as the starting center now. The biggest problem with the Chargers last year was their offensive line. We saw that when Washington went to SoFi to play the Chargers in a game in which the team actually legitimately on offense looked like they did in 2024, but it was also one of the better defensive performances because the Charger offensive line was an absolute mess. You've got McDaniel out there as the OC. You've got Herbert. You've got the kid from Carolina, the back from Carolina, Hampton coming back. He was injured. They still have some issues at wide receiver, although, it's possible they could add to what they have. But they've got Quentin Johnston back. They've got Ladd McConkey back. They're a little bit light there, but I would expect the Chargers and that AFC West to be quite the race between the Chiefs with Mahomes back, the Chargers, and the Broncos. And I'll just mention that the Raiders are actually improved on paper as well. They have upgraded overall. Now, if they end up playing Mendoza earlier rather than later, you're going to probably take your lumps like most teams do, although the draft class of 24 had some success in their rookie years. But, man, that is a brutal division, that AFC West. 3 legitimate, playoff-type teams at the top of that division. But, yeah, 10 weeks from today, we'll be on the eve of the NFL season kicking off. Get your prediction pencils ready. That'll do it for today. Chris is next.